All right, welcome to the 5th video in the series. We're going to finish up putting our posts in, and this is going to involve our plastics. So we want to get all of our plastics out and ready. And again, we're going to have several different types of posts we're going to be using. So posts that go into a plastic are going to have a little threaded end, and those come in two styles. They come in a wood screw and a machine screw style. And we'll also similarly have some machine screws, number 6 machine screw and number 6 sheet metal for areas where there aren't holes in the plastic. All right, one additional complication here is that a lot of these era of Bally pinball machines had plastics that had little metal posts riveted to these clear plastics, and this plastic is a guide. That's very hard to reproduce, and so instead of using a riveted piece of metal, we're going to use a nylon spacer under there. And then in situations where there's a spacer on the bottom and the top, we would just stack them like that. And that height matches the height of our star post. Now the question is, do we just screw it in, or do we stack them? And the way to figure that out is that we align this up. So there's definitely going to be 3 under here for each hole. But when we look at the plastic, only one of these actually goes up, rises up to attach to the plastic. So what that means is we're going to need, the same way we have these different screws for the full height of the post, we're going to need 2 of these to be a little bit shorter. So we're going to need a short machine screw, number 6, and a short sheet metal screw to go here and here. Now you could also probably find images on the internet of playfields, existing playfields, to give you a clue as to what needs to go where. But for us, what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at the actual holes, the holes in the plastics versus the holes in the playfields. And everywhere there's a hole in the plastic and the playfield, that means it needs a post with a number 6 machine thread at the top. If it doesn't have a hole there, that means it's just going to be the screw base. So for example, we would have here's an example where a post would have a screw head there where it goes to the plastic, and then next to it here there's a post that does not. All right, so we're going to start here and work our way around. So the first thing we would do is this plastic one here. Normally I would leave the protective plastic on to the last minute, but that's not something we can do because this is going to be sandwiched in there. We're not going to want to have to take this off again. Plus it doesn't really need a ton of protection. All right, so this is the machine screw side, so that goes here, and this is the wood screw side, so that goes there. And we can just sort of position one underneath there, like so. Okay, this is intended to be a ball guide, so if at some future time we see that this is catching and there's going to be a post here, balls are supposed to come down this way, you may want to adjust it slightly, turn it to make sure that the ball is flowing correctly. but I think this looks fine for now. If it doesn't play well, we'll come back and adjust it. Okay, so what goes here? So there's a post here, and we've already selected the middle one for that adjustment, and a post here, and there's going to be a rubber across these two. Then backing up behind the drop target, there's a long rubber here, and so that's going to be a post, a post, a post, and then these two spacers, these slim spacers, that give it, because it's a large span here, it keeps the rubber from, rebounding too much. And then there's going to be a single post here, just a single rubber. So single rubber, one large rubber, and then a small rubber here. Okay, now we think about which screws we need. We know that this goes like so. So that means that this needs a little machine post for an acorn there. This end, the middle, and this end. And then we're going to need a machine screw post here as well. This one will also get a machine screw post, but for the spinner. Okay, I would keep the clear plastic on as long as possible, but I think we do want to take off the paper backing. I'm just going to roll that off carefully. Sometimes there's a little bit of a powder residue if the white gets into the laser cut area, but this looks pretty clean. If you do see some white residue, like a little bit of Windex and a rag, will clean that off. All right, but we'll keep this on until we're ready to install, because this could end up getting scratched as we're building out. You can see there's a little bit of powder there from the paper. Okay, so this first one needs a wood screw with a machine top. All right, this one's just a regular machine screw. Sorry, I said machine screw, I meant sheet metal screw. Okay. Sheet metal, sheet metal. This is a post with a wood screw. This is the sheet metal. Okay, so that's the sheet metal. This one gets the machine screw with the acorn post. Okay. That seems really close. All right. Okay, and then this one at the end is also machine screw base. And then you notice we put the spacer, a top spacer for this one as well. Okay, so that covers all of the screw posts that we need for the plastics. And so the rest of these are going to be just sheet metal. So I'm going to do that part, and then we'll come back to do the rubbers. Okay, so these posts are now in. So now we have a selection of rubbers here to choose from. You can get these from Pinball Life. They're silicone rubbers. This big span across here, we have 2 3/4. So hopefully this fits. This is the largest that they make in the color version of these. Yeah, that'd be fine. Okay, 2 3/4 for that. This, we have a couple options. I think it's going to be a 1-inch diameter. Again, just for aesthetics, they're labeled here with an imprint. I like to put that facing down. Okay, so that's those two, and then I usually buy a bunch of 3/8, because 3/8 are what you want for a single post, and there's going to be a lot of those. And again, I put the label down. Okay. All right. Now you see these little skinny posts here. A lot of times on a drop target, like a wide drop target where there's a big span here, you'll see these extra supports, because if some of these are down and it hasn't reset yet, if you hit this open spot, if this didn't have like a little bit of backing support here, you'd get a really nasty rebound kick up into the glass. It can be really nasty. So this helps it from basically rebounding too much when you hit this when there's no target there. All right, so that looks pretty good. And then the plastic can go on top like that. All right, we'll put some acorns on top of this also, even though it's not the final install, but it'll help us keep everything in place. Okay, here's our colored acorns. Again, we have an option of choosing what color we want based on the theme, and in this case, you could use blue to sort of make it look like it's fading into the plastic, or you could use a contrasting color. Red is a little more contrasting. What we had done on the slings was we decided to go with the contrast. So I'm gonna stick with that style. On some games where the plastics are multicolor, I'll pick a color that matches whatever color happens to be near the post. But in this case, it's pretty uniform, so we're going to stick with just one color for all of these. And you can get these pre-colored from Pinball Life. Okay. All right. I'm not going to tighten them down too much because we may end up wanting to take these off when we do some other installation. So we don't want to, this is not the permanent final installation. But at least it knows we have like the right number of acorns and such. Okay, switching to the right hand side now, we're going to do this one. Now this one has a little bit of an issue. So these plastics came from CPR, and you can see that this one only has one mounting hole lasered into it. Now, we would never have a plastic with only one mounting hole because it would pivot. So if we compare it to a vintage version, we can see that there's supposed to be a mounting hole at the bottom, and this is for this adjustment. That's why it's elongated. And then there's a mounting hole up here as well. So we're going to have to modify this first. We're going to drill out I'll mark it and then drill it because we need holes to mount, because there's supposed to be a mounting hole here, right there, and then a mounting hole here. All right, so I'm going to mark that and drill it out. Okay, so I've used this as a template to mark where those holes should be. And I'm just going to drill a small hole first, because we don't want a big drill that could sort of walk on you. So we're going to drill with a small hole first. And same on the other side here. All right, and then we're going to drill it out with this, and we know that that's about the right size for that. And you notice I don't drill right on the table. I have this piece of waste wood underneath. And the other side. So another reason why it's good to keep the plastic on there, because we had to make some modifications, and this protects it when we're working with it. All right, now let's try installing it. Okay, let's see if this lines up. So this was our original hole, and then our new hole lines up with that one and that one. Okay, so that's good. All right, now let's place our posts. We've got a post there. This hole is for the shooter lane wall. We have a whole post there. These are stand-up targets, so they're usually bracketed by posts. This hole is for a wire form, a wire guide that goes there. But we need one there. Again, that's the shooter lane. This is for the plastic, this is for the spinner, and then this is the top of the shooter lane guide, and then this is the wire form. Okay, so 7, 8. All right, and we know that these three are going to be screw posts. So 2 wood screw posts and 1 machine screw post. All right, let's do the machine one first. There should be very little resistance because this is going into a T-nut. So if you feel any resistance, double check that you're not like cross-threading it or something like that. The wood screw is different. We did pilot it, but it's still going to take a little bit of effort to get that in there. And I think I mentioned this before, but you really don't want to over crank these, because the heads on these things can be they're not very strong, and so you could easily torque the head off of that. All right, I don't need that one, but I need this, and this goes here. And we kind of use the post as a guide to help center it, make sure we're going in straight. Okay. All right, so we do a little test fit. Okay, those all lined up great. We're going to put one more here because this is the spinner, and so it needs a post, a screw post on top for the bracket, and that was a wood screw post. Okay, now the rest of these just get regular number 6 sheet metal screws. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll do the rubbers the same way we did on the other side. Okay, those are all in. We still got this one. This one actually needs a screw post because what's going to go there, there's a gate, a wire gate that goes here. So that's going to need a screw post because when the ball comes through here, if it doesn't get all the way up, when it comes back down, you want it going back through there. All right, so screw post for this guy. All right, and then this would mount on top of the sidewall. And it still needs the wire, the gate. We're going to bend our own wire for this, and in another video later we'll show how that's done, but it's not too hard. Okay, I mentioned that we have a ton of these 3/8. Like that's most of the rubbers we're going to be using are these 3/8 version. So I usually buy like a ton of these and then a small selection of other, but you're going to go through a lot of these guys. So in fact every one of these is a single. All right, and again, because these are stand-ups, the stand-ups are usually bracketed with a rubber backing. This one looks a little off, the hole placement, but let's keep an eye on that and check that later. Okay. All right, again, we're going to take the paper off the plastic, but we'll keep the clear side. Just want to do it very gently because this is printed on there. That's ink, with an inkjet printer. All right. Okay. And then we're going to use red acorn nuts on this, be consistent with the coloring. It's a pretty simple red, white, and blue theme, so not a lot of options to go with there. I'm going to put one here just as a placeholder. And same for this, we'll put one here as a placeholder. Okay. Okay, I just want to do a little check, a visual check, just to make sure we made the right color choices here. This is not the original color, but because we're doing red rubbers instead of white rubbers and silver posts, to make it more coordinated, I bought these blue stand-ups, and so let's take a look. We'll put them in from the back just temporarily. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. So it gives us some nice contrast, right? So if you were looking to aim for that, you're not going to get mixed up with which you're aiming for, right? Okay, this last one. All right, notice it's sort of sticking out into the opening there, which is a little concerning. I don't know that it's going to be critical, but we can see that this is that's a wood screw. So if we don't like it, I think there's enough room that we can move it over 1/4 of an inch to be clear of that hole. And we would still have room in the wood for that to sit there. So anyway, we're not going to do that right away. Let's see how it plays. If there's a problem with how it plays, then we'll do something different. I'm going to change this up a little bit. We're not going to move it, but I do want to see, I think maybe this actually should have a different rubber on it. Let's see if this fits. All right, let's do that. That way we don't get any weird bouncing right around this, the out lane and return lane. Let's go with that. I think that might be how it's supposed to be. All right. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we just finished this section. We'll do this little section here, which is going to be, this is where the spinner is, so there's going to be a post here for the spinner. There's going to be 2 posts here for this little plastic and a rubber. And then we're going to have 2 posts here for this little lane guide. All right. And so we're going to need, for the lane guides, I'm doing something a little bit different than what you would normally see on the vintage machines. I like to have the screw post with the machine nuts on top so that you can actually take this lane guide off without the posts having to come off, which is different than the way you see it on a vintage game. They just screw the whole thing directly down. But that means that every time you want to take this off to change the bulb or whatever, all these posts come off as well. Anyway, that's a little bit different, but we're going to put screws into these posts here, and they're all going to be the kinds with the machine thread on the top. Okay, so most of these are going to be the 632 machine thread. We'll just sort of pre-thread these loosely. All right, and then we'll come back with a hex. I'm going to tighten down just enough that these things aren't going to want to turn. May need to come back later and retighten these anyway, because the clear coat may relax a little bit. It tends to indent a little bit. So if it relaxes in it, you're going to have to come back and tighten this up a little more anyway. Okay. So there's that, and this would sit on top like this. Now we need one more with the wood screw with the thread on top, or the post on top. Okay. And then this lane guide should fit over just like that. Perfect. Okay, now we'll put the rubbers on here. All right, these are 3/8. Actually, this needs a rubber too. All right, the lane guide gets its own, each post gets its own individual rubber. And then we'll use a 1" for this this gap here. Seems a little tight. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right. All right, there's the rubbers. All right. Plastic, same thing. We'll take the paper off the back. Carefully peel that off. Leave the plastic on top. And we like red for these. And put the lane guide here. I'm actually going to try blue. Yeah, alright, that's good. Blue for this. Get some nice contrast, red, white, and blue. And then this will just be a placeholder. There's going to be a bracket here for the spinner. Maybe that will be blue, I'm not sure. Let's try that. That might look better blue. Give it a little more variation. Yeah, see, that looks a little bit better right there. Okay. Alright, we still got to put a mini post here. Okay, for this mini post, we've already put in the chamfer on this so that when this screws in, it's not gonna want to lift the clear coat up. I also mentioned earlier we're going to put a washer under there because this is just very small amount of surface area into that play field, and you don't want it to really indent, damage it. So we're going to put a washer there. Now, a lot of people maybe don't realize this, but the washer actually has a top and a bottom side. It looks like just a flat piece of metal, but when this washer is made, it's made by pressing a stamp on top of it, and that from the top it has a little bit of a curved edge, and the bottom's going to have a sharper edge. So you always want the curved edge downward, right? If you put the sharp edge down, it's going to start to leave an imprint, or a larger imprint in the clear coat. Same is true would be for like on a race car or other things. You want the smooth edge to be facing down, like so. And then we're going to screw the post in. It's a 1/4 inch hex on the base, and so we're going to use this little ratchet. And we're just going to slowly ratchet that down. You want to make sure that it's centered. So kind of hold it by the tip as you're screwing it down, just to make sure you're staying centered. So we've got quite a ways to go here. Okay. All right. I'm going to loosen it back up a little bit, and just I like the washer to be centered. This is a number 10 washer. Just for aesthetics, I like to keep it as centered as possible. Okay. I don't know if you can tell, but this this mini post has like a nice shiny finish. If you want that, I recommend putting these on a buffing wheel first. If you buff these, they can actually look really nice. When you get them straight from the factory, they're going to have more of a matte finish, but these will polish up really nicely. And the rubber, again, you can find this Pinball Life. It's got a smaller hole there, as you can see. and just fits snug like that. All right, and this post here is to help protect. There's a wire link that goes from the spinner down to the switch below, and so this post here protects that wire from getting direct hits. All right, looks good. Okay, we're going to do this next section up here near the top, the passive bumpers, and this is the plastic that goes here, and you have 2 additional lane guides here and here, and then the targets. So you've got 4 posts like so, and these are both going to have to be machine posts, and then also for the lane guide, this should be a machine post, and this is going to be a wood screw with the post. Okay, one thing to note here is that this lane guide is actually a half guide. So the plastic goes on the inside because the guide is for this to go over the switch. Now the reason it's in half is that the rubber on this bumper is actually coming across and then over to this post. So it's not just what you would normally see where it's just a round piece of rubber just around the bumper. It's actually an oblong, and they're pulling it over to this post. But in order to do that, there needs to be an opening here. So you're going to need to get either they make these lane guides that only have the one side, and it'll, they're symmetric, so it'll work either way. Now what I've done with this one is I've actually just taken a standard lane guide and then cut off the edge. Some of these ones, if you want the actual Bally logo, it's going to be a little bit harder to find, but you could take one of these and then just cut off the side. I might do a little sidebar to show you how to do that. All right, just a really quick sidebar. If you can't find these with just the one wall, you could do a little modification, get like a 3/4 inch plywood and just stick that on top, and then I would tape it down. I'm going to tape it so that it's square. There's going to be a little bit of a gap there because of the way that it's molded. So tape it to your piece of scrap wood. And I'm not going to cut this one, but you would get one of these X-Acto saw blades and just come in here into that gap and just cut straight across through here. And on both sides. You can even flip it around if you want to cut from this side as well. All right, I'm not going to cut this one, but that's exactly how I made this guy right here. I just put it on here and then just cut it. All right, so these, take the machine screw posts, in. Get nice and snug. And this one's going to take the wood screw style post. Okay, we're going to put the rubbers on. This is a 3/4 inch. Okay, it fits nicely. This again is just our standard 3/8. Okay, now instead of putting a 3/8 here, these are connected. So this is like This is a 1.5 inch, and so we'll go around the bumper into the groove, and then pull it over to the post. Okay, and that's not too tight. So that's how that's going to look. And then the lane guide goes here. All right, and then we'll put some blue acorns on top of that to match. Oops, those are red. All right, blue. There. Okay. All right. All right, before we do the plastic will go here, but we'll do the other side. All right, same thing. Just now from the other side, get our posts, or star posts, and then our screw posts. We'll do the machine ones first. Okay. You guys have already seen this. I'm going to go ahead and screw this in, put on the rubbers, and I'll meet you back when we put on the plastic. Okay. We got the post, put the lane guide on, and the rubbers. Same process here. Let's peel this paper off carefully. Alright, we're going to leave the plastic on temporarily until we like everything where it is. Okay, alright, now that all fits, that's great. Now our nylon, and if we go by our previous examples, these would be red if we want to be consistent in our style. Okay. All right. All right, looking pretty good. All right, to give you guys a better feel for what this is going to look like, these bumpers get what they call a deco style bumper cap. So it looks like that. Now the problem is these are supposed to have like a little EK insignia on them, which are harder to find. So I'm probably going to do a little cut vinyl. I'm actually even thinking that this should say EVEL for evil, and then this becomes sort of like a second mode. Make these pop bumpers, or sorry, the passive bumpers have a little more meaning to the rules. But I'm also thinking that what I might do, I could do red ring with blue lettering, or they make blue versions of this cap, and I could do a blue cap with red lettering. So I'm still up in the air about this, but I think that the blue cap gives a better contrast with the blue skirt and the red rubber as opposed to this. I think this actually looks a little bit better. So this with red lettering might be better than this with blue lettering. But that's how it should look, essentially. Like that. Alright, looks a little more complete like that. Okay, this is the last major piece, plastic piece. You can see it's got three holes, which is correct. CPR put the correct number of holes in this one. But 3 holes means there's going to be 3 screw posts, and it looks like it's 2 machine versions and a wood version. But there's a lot of plastic posts here, star posts, so we might end up using all the rest of these guys. I'll put a link. These came from what is it, Ministry of Pinball, but I'll put a link to where these are. This is our lane guide. Actually, the lane guide also gets screw posts. This is a wire form there. That's a post. Not sure why this has so many posts right in the middle, but all right. There we go. All right, now we're going to get our post screws, and we'll do the 3 for the plastic first. Okay, so we got 3 posts. There's actually not a star post here. I think this is supposed to be for maybe a nail that's supposed to support this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not a fan of putting nails up into the plastic. But our screw posts are going to be here, which is a machine post, and then here, which is also a machine post, and then this one up top is a screw post. All right, so let's put those in. Okay. All right. All right, you all have seen how this goes. I'm going to put in regular screws on the rest of these. I'll put post screws here for the lane guide, and then I'll see you after we finish this, but it's pretty much the same thing. Okay, we've got all these posts. I'm going to put the rubbers on. 3/8 there. This one's 1.5 inches. There. It's a little loose, it's alright. This one is 2 inches, and it goes across these 3, like so. Okay, some nice bounce. And the lane guide goes here, but this rubber 1.25 inches goes there first. There's going to be a wire form that comes around here to block that off. And then we need another 3/8 here. Okay, and the lane guide goes there. Alright, and then the plastic sits on top like this. Okay, and then this is for the spinner. Alright. Now let's put our acorn nuts on. Okay, be consistent with our coloring scheme. We want blue on the white lane guides. Okay. And then we want red on the plastics, like so. Okay. And then I was doing blue on the spinner, just to make it a little bit different. Okay. All right, we got just a few more things to finish this up. We need a mini post here. All right, and that protects the wire for the spinner from getting hit. And then we need to put a couple mini posts here, and then some stand-up posts here. And there's going to be a special modification I'm going to do for this because this is really tight. All right, you saw me do this one over here. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Oh, and also remember, double check. We want the smooth side of the washer, that there's a top and a bottom. We want that smooth side downward. Okay. All right, got the mini post screwed in there with the washer. I'll put a red rubber on there. All right, now we're going to do the same for these two. Same thing we did here with mini posts. Okay, we got these 2 mini posts in. And again, remember, there's a top and a bottom side to these washers, and you want the smooth side down, technically the top, because when they stamp it, there's a rounded edge and a sharp edge. You want the sharp edge pointing up, not down into your playfield, okay? All right. Last thing we're going to do is these posts, and we're going to do a little bit of a modification here. Okay, now you notice our thumper, we cut our hole for a thumper, and it's aligned with the artwork, but the cutout for this is a little offset. It's not registered properly, and when this post comes in here, it gets too close to this to the skirt here. And I guess you could modify the skirt with a cutout, but what I'm going to do instead is we're going to put a different type of narrow post here and here on this side, and that'll give us a little bit more room. Okay. All right, so I'm going to screw these in. I polish these up a little bit. I'll put the part number in the document, but I polish these up on the buffing wheel. Make them nice and shiny. Just want to screw those in relatively tight. And one thing I think I'm going to do here, the bumper cap is red and the skirt's red. I think for this one, I'm actually going to make these blue. The rubber's blue here. Let's see. Yeah. That gives a little bit more contrast with the red in the skirt on the thumper. Okay. Yeah. And the target's going to be blue as well, but it's going to span that whole thing. We're not going to do this just yet, but I wanted to show you the target. It's a special assembly for a wide stand-up target. And it'll come in from under here like this. So it fills that gap nicely. I think that looks pretty good. All right, that's going to be it for video number 5. So we basically done a majority of the plastics. We won't do the top arch until we get the rails in, but we've done all of the interior plastics, posts, everything that sort of gets us going. All right, that's video number 5, and stay tuned for video number 6. All right, thank you for watching.